What is going on? Welcome back, guys. Today I want to show you the 5 best decks that you can use for the rest of this season to climb to Master 1 with. This is a video I will do every season from now on. I was planning on doing it for the rest of this season and the start of the next season until the release of the next pack. Obviously we will get new cards then, but with the new ban list that was dropped today, obviously there will be some changes for the next month, so I will make a fresh video for that for the next season to climb to Master 1 with. Also, when I make the video in the future, we will have more information on what is in the pack that comes, so we will see. This information you can use to use the rest of the month to climb to Master 1. Obviously, would have been better to make this video at the start of the month, but as you guys know, I was on vacation, but in the future you will get this video earlier. So without further ado, let's hop in to the best 5 decks that in my opinion you can use to get Master 1 with in August. So number 5 is the only spot where I have a few different lists that I think can be used to reach Master 1 with the best. The other spots 4, 3, 2 and 1 will only have one list, one deck, but I think there are in particular 3 decks that you can use quite effectively to reach Master 1 with at place number 5. And the first thing that we have that maybe not of you are playing or maybe even have the cards, the list, is Rika Sun Avalon, which is really a nice deck and will really profit from tier elements leaving the game, as this deck struggles a bit against the tier matchup. Will be a way better against the Kash matchup, though the Kash matchup also has some things that make it tough for this deck. But all in all, I think this is one of the strongest deck that not a lot of people have on their mind, have on paper, and one advantage that you will have whilst playing this deck is the fact that not a lot of people know what this deck even does. So that means that not a lot of people know where to hand trap this deck or where to interrupt this deck. Let me tell you, if you want to interrupt this deck effectively, you can interrupt it at Mudan, because Mudan always searches the field spell, which then gets into very strong cards and is a real core point of the combo. Another good place to interrupt this would be Aromatherapy Jasmine, though they can make another one and use the effect again. But if you can negate the Jasmine, for example, with your Infinite Impermanence, that's quite strong because it has 2 important effects and you can then negate both of them. Also, a nice place to use an Ash Blossom would be Sunvine Sowing, as then the Rika player will not have access to all of its combo pieces. So a really strong deck that can, going first, establish a really strong board that not a lot of other decks can play through, and going second, it can struggle a bit. Hence, this is why there is evenly matched in the deck. You could also run Dark Ruler No More, and in the upcoming Kashtira format, Dark Ruler No More possibly will be the better card to run here in this spot where we now have the 3 evenly matched. So you will see this deck tomorrow or the day after in the video where I will climb to Master 1 with Rika Sun Avalon. Just made the deck really strong, really fun, and also not the most expensive deck if you want to build it. Obviously you need these cards here, these ultra rares here, but you can get the Strenna, the Rika Queen, Aromatherapy Jasmine, and then also, yeah, these 3 you can get from the Rika pack, and there's only one other ultra rare in there, so the chances of pulling these are very high. This is also from a secret pack. This you don't need but can craft. And then we have stuff like the Therion Engine, which you then would need Therion King Regulus and the field spell for. You don't need the Therion Engine, you don't need to play it, but you can if you want to. And cards like 1-for-1 that gets you into your starter, which is Sansi Genius Loci, this is also not needed. You could also put this out and put another spell in, which is called, now I have to think, I have this in the bigger deck. Let me check. I have this in the 60 card version. You could also replace the 1-for-1 for this spell here, the Painful Decision, which is also able to get to your Sunseed Genius Loci. And this also, if you want to play a 60 card version, you can see here there are more tech cards in there like the Kashira Fenrir, but also you will be less likely to get cards like your evenly matched when going second, obviously because there are 60 cards. So I think Rika Sun Avalon definitely one of the decks that you can reach Master 1 with pretty easily in August. The second of 3 decks here at number 5 is a Labyrinth, the furniture build. Labyrinth is really strong and really profits from the fact that a lot of people are leaving the Tearlament deck behind, because if you have noticed, and if you are playing on Master, a lot of people are playing the pure Kashtira cards, the pure Kashtira decks, which this is really rough for Tearlaments. Also Fenrir's existence alone is pretty rough, as you can just play the Fenrir, and if then, for example, your Tearlament opponent goes second, so you only have the Fenrir in this scenario. Then your Tearlament opponent goes second, plays the Rhino Heart, dumps, for example, the Merly into the grave, and then makes the Kid Kalos. Then you can directly banish the Kid Kalos, and it's pretty hard for the Tearlament opponent to get rid of the Fenrir without needing to use Fusion Summons. So then after he Fusion Summoned, you can remove whatever he has Fusion Summoned onto the field. So this is really rough for Tearlaments, and one reason why the deck is weaker. And that is important for this deck, because Labyrinth against Tearlaments is not the best matchup. Other than that, the matchup that this deck has are pretty good. You can also go and use the Terrors of the Overroot, or not Terrors, it's Terrors of the Overroot. Now that a lot of people are playing Kashtira, you could also put in Terrors of the Overroot and maybe put something like Dogmatica Punishment out, or your Dimensional Barrier if you don't face a lot of Tearlament players. Terrors of the Overroot are really nice, really strong to basically remove one of your opponent's Kashtira monsters from the field and maybe place an Ash on the field, because if you know, Tearlament or Kashtira cannot play their monsters if they have a monster on the field. So by getting their Kashtira card to the graveyard and another monster to the field, they are then basically locked from special summoning, for example, their Unicorn, their Ogre, or their Fenrir that they might still have in hand. So really strong card that you can put in against the Kashtira matchup, but you can also like keep the Dimensional Barrier in, and you also have the Shuffler guys for your Tearlaments matchup. So really strong, has some really nice matchups, and definitely a deck that you can use. You can use this list if you want to, can use to reach Master 1 with. A quick little note, I don't think that you need Chaos Angel in this deck. This deck can work without the Chaos Angel, but obviously this is a really nice addition, also a really nice staple card if you want to go for that. You will be able to use this effectively in the future with new archetypes and new cards coming to the game. But let's look at the last deck that I also think is pretty nice for reaching Master 1 with at spot number 5. And the third deck that you can use here at number 5 to reach Master 1 with is Sword Solutani. If, for example, you would face a lot of Tearlament opponents, you could go, it's not Bastiles, it's Bastille, you could go and use the Bastiles, could put a Bastille package in here and put maybe something like these going second cards out of the deck, because then you would be way more effective against Tearlaments if you are facing a lot of them. Otherwise, I think this is a pretty nice list that you can use. This is a pretty basic list. Obviously, you can fine-tune the list in terms of what you are facing a lot, but I think that Sword Soul still is a deck that you can make really strong games with, really strong boards, and you can also break boards quite easily. Keep in mind though that if you do not have the deck already, you can now more easily make it through the secret packs. The only thing that I would like to mention here is that I think the deck will get weaker come time, because there are just no new support cards for the deck, at least as far as we know from the OCG. And yeah, as the power creep goes on and there are stronger decks being released, obviously I think as of right now nothing is as strong as was Tearlaments at the beginning, but nevertheless I think this deck will lose power in the long run, given that it does not get new support, which I think at some point it will get new support, but it's not in the near future and we don't know of it at this point. So keep that in mind when building this deck. If you would, for example, need to craft a lot of cards to be able to play this deck, of course go for it. I think you can reach Master 1 with this deck for at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 seasons more, though it will get tougher throughout the seasons, I think, as this deck falls off a bit in power level, but still a nice deck. Number 5 at reaching Master 1 with in August. So now comes the interesting stuff. Number 4, I think, is branded Bastille. With the new ban list, of course, we will lose another branded fusion, which will hurt this deck it will definitely hurt this deck. You want to run not a lot of cards here, close to 40, so you can get access to your Brand of Fusion, which is the most important card. Unfortunately, I talked about this a lot of times. Unfortunately, the Ash being in basically everyone's deck is really, really rough for Brand Bastille. That's why I think it's pretty sad that they will put this at 1. But this list here, with the Bastilles to counter the Telements and the Kashtira Fenrir also to counter the Telements, you can definitely run the Fenrir here. It doesn't really interrupt with other cards a bit with the Bastilles, because if you summon a Bastille on your opponent's turn, for example, then obviously you cannot go Kashtira Fenrir. So if you end up playing against Telements a lot and you end up going second a lot and putting the Bastilles on the field at the first turn and then being stuck with your Fenrir, you could also consider putting the Fenrir out and putting maybe another crossout designator in to be more protected from the Ash Blossom. Other than that, I think this is really solid. Still, having the Mirror Jade and being able to really easily summon it is super strong. You can obviously banish the enemy's Kit Colors, which then is basically the end of the game. This is also strong against Kashtira. As you can see here, I have put in 2 Nibiru's. This is debatable, but if you face a lot of Kashtira, you could also put in 3 Nibiru's if you have 3. I don't think that you need to craft 3 if you don't have 3, but you can get 1 for free from the bundle. I happen to pull 1 from a secret pack, so I think with Nibiru's, with the Bastilles and the Kashtira Fenrir, this deck is pretty prepared. Going into most matchups, you can also use the Super Poly to break some boards, and then you have a lot of really strong fusion monsters. And keep in mind, this deck will also get new support in the future, which will make the deck even stronger. I think this will be a strong deck for a considerable amount of time moving forward. So a bit different story than the Sword Soul deck, which I think will lose power. This will gain even more power with new support, though unfortunately it will again be hit by the ban list, which is pretty sad, but a really cool deck. I also have to say that in terms of playing the deck, it has really cool like artworks. I think all of us love dragons. Who didn't love dragons when they were young? So we can play dragons here, fusion monsters. This is definitely one of the coolest, or maybe the coolest fusion deck that you can play. Still super strong, and a deck at number 4 that you can use to reach Master 1 with. We are getting closer to the top spot, and I think at number 3 there is Sprite. Sprite Pure. Once again, this also will get hit. The frog package will probably leave the deck. Then we have Jet at 1, and we will have to see which package will replace this. Maybe we will go back to the, how's this thing called? The Mermaid or something? Like this level 2 package, where, let me just put this to level 2. I'm not quite sure. The mermaid girls that can, let me just put this to water, because this was water. I also have this, yeah, it's Deep Sea Diva, so you could run Deep Sea Diva as well. I mean, this is obviously a worse package than is the frog package, so that's a bit unfortunate for the deck. Definitely will get weaker, but the cool thing is that you can also easily run to Fenrir in here. You can see the Bastille package in here, same thing as in the branded Bastille deck. Also, this is against Telements, really, really nice. You have your Duster against some back row matchups, and other than that, nothing too special, nothing too new, just pure Sprite being a super strong deck, because Sprite is such a strong engine. If you manage to build your big board going first, then it will be pretty tough for your opponent to break it, and going second, you can also break your opponent's board. Every deck that can successfully play Zeus, the Zeus package via XYZs, and can effectively make it, will always be a strong deck. You can go over Sky Cavalier Centaurea, then attack, and then go into your Zeus, whatever your opponent has on the field, even an a Magnite Crusader Avermax. Also, the Crusader Avermax, still a card that can just end some matchups. If, for example, your Telement opponent does not have the Underworld Goddess into the deck, then he can not out your Magnite Crusader. So this is a strong card that you can make and just simply win some matchups. So for example, you could also win the Labyrinth matchup, because they're also not able to get rid of this card. So Sprite Pure, still super, super strong, and you will have a pretty easy climb. Just get used to the deck, get used to the combo lines, and I think investing in the Sprite engine, if you don't have it already, still a good idea. This engine will be strong in the future, even with Sprite Jet being at 1. And here we have our number 3 for the month. This might be a surprise to some people, but I think that Telements is the number 2 for this month. There is another deck Most of you will probably already know which deck I will put at number 1 in my personal opinion. I would say enjoy playing with tier elements for the rest of the month if you like the deck, because next month, going with the Merly to 0 and also the Agido Forbidden and this to 1, I think we are nearing the point of this deck not being the strongest deck anymore. It will definitely not be the strongest deck next month. I would argue if it is the strongest deck at this point in time. You will see what I will put at number 1 in a moment. But yeah, what can I say here? Tier element is still pretty strong, though I would suggest you swap to one of the other decks if you encounter a lot of Kashtira matchups. I personally, playing in Master, have encountered a lot of Kashtira matchups. There was a time, and I wasn't tracking. I wasn't tracking because I was playing on the journey to Austria on my phone, and I don't know, I played like 20 games and I faced like, I'm not gonna lie, I faced like 20 Kashtira opponents. So everybody is playing this Kashtira pile deck. So if you are facing a lot of these decks, then I would suggest switching, because the Kashtira deck has a nice matchup against this here. It's pretty rough, but enjoy tier elements for the rest of the month until the strength of this deck will be brought down by a lot. I mean, obviously they are putting the normal card here, the N, to 0 instead of giving us, I don't know, like stuff for Shiren, for putting Shiren to Forbidden, or maybe the Rhino Heart. But we will see. I think people will get creative in creating new versions of the deck that can still be good. But I think the time of this deck has passed. This deck will no longer be the strongest deck, and I think it will never return to being the strongest deck. So enjoy the power level. Enjoy the last tier elements breaths before the deck potentially dies in the future. And yeah, this is the number 2 for this month of August. And for our number 1, a lot of people might already have guessed it because this deck was missing. I think Dragonlink at the moment is the strongest deck. It has an awesome I always keep messing these two decks up. This has an awesome tier elements matchup because, as you can see, my list is maybe a bit extreme. I am running full Bastille package, but I think the Bastille package is what really makes this deck amazing together with Branded Regained. The Bastille engine alone can win you games, and you also have the Dragonlink engine, ending on stuff like your Boral and Dragon, which is pretty hard to out, or ending on stuff like your Borrowed Savage, which can negate anything if you want to, and still have some like coins from your link monsters that are equipped to it. So really strong going first, but it's an amazing board. Also strong going second, able to destroy your opponent's boards. You can run a decent amount of hand traps. I would say you have triple Maxi, triple Ash. You can run your card by package. You could also consider running triple Imperm if you wanted to, and the deck would still be fine. I am keeping my decks close to 40-41 because I like it that way. Also not the most expensive deck, I would say, especially if you already have the Bastille engine. You don't need 3 Bastille Lobelions. I like it to get my Bastilles to the hand, to search them via the Bastille Lobelion. Other than that, really strong, awesome tier elements matchup, can be strong or has good matchups against all the other decks as well, also against the new Kashtira deck. So I think at the moment Dragonlink is the strongest deck and potentially will be the strongest deck going into the next month, into the next season, though at the moment we don't know what will happen with the new pack. I think if we get the full Kashtira support, then if nothing special happens, let's say some of the Kashtira cards like the Planet, the Field Spell, or the spell card, the Kashtira Theosis that we still will get, if those cards will be untouched when releasing, then I think Kashtira will be the strongest deck, but we will have to see. Maybe we won't even get the Kashtira cards. Let's see, maybe we will get Purely. I don't know what Konami's thinking, but for now, this is the strongest deck, and I think investing in this deck is a pretty safe bet. You have the Bastille engine that you can use in a lot of other decks, and then you have some like cool extra deck monsters that are also basically some, you could call them generic in terms of Borrowed Savage you can use in a lot of decks. Chaos Ruler you can use in a lot of decks. The Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, it's a pretty nice card. Obviously Baron, you have a Chaos engine here that is pretty usable in a lot of other decks, and then you have Access Code Talker, and then you have Seal and you have Ball, and which are a bit more Dragonlink specific, I would say. But other than that, look at the Ultra Rares here in the deck. This is the only one that is really Dragonlink specific, but other than that, this is a pretty cheap deck which will grant you the Bastille engine that you can use in a lot of other decks. Oh, there's also Cast Dragon Levian here, that's right. So pretty cheap deck for what it is, and I think the strongest deck at the moment, August, the best deck to reach Master 1 with. You will have the easiest climb, have the highest win rate. I have used this deck for the last season and the season before that to climb. The last season, this was definitely the most successful deck that I used because there were a lot of telements running around. So yeah, go ahead, use this, pretty safe investment for the future. We'll also get new support via the Bastille Disparter, which is a Synchro Extra deck monster. But yeah, this is my number one. This is the list for this month. As I said, I will do lists for every month. Now that you can use to determine which deck you want to play to maybe reach Master 1 with. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of videos, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see each other in the next one.